ALA. I am Liz Galati. I'm happy to be here for the Women in the Future of Gaming panel. I have lovely guests here. I am here simply because I've been a pop culture publicist for 20 years, ranging everything from comics to gaming to video games. And I have the luxury and honor to have a panel of ladies here that are not the first ladies. These are not the first people doing something. Well, in Keisha's case, of course, she's bucking the trend. She is the first person doing something. That said, they are absolutely changing the face of gaming and how we communicate, why we communicate, and why we game. So with no further ado, I will let each lady start off to introduce themselves. Darcy?
Hey everybody, I'm Darcy Ross. My pronouns are she, her, and by day I am a community manager over at Monty Cook Games. We make tabletop role-playing games for kids and adults. I also have done some design work in other games. So there's an upcoming Roll20 RPG called Burn Bright that's launching like very, very shortly. And so I have some expertise on kind of online gaming, sort of taking analog games like board games and role-playing games and streaming them to a live audience. And I also am a resource on kind of community management and tabletop publishing. So excited to be here.
Keisha?
Hello, everyone. I am Keisha Howard. I am founder of Sugar Gamers, which for the last 11 years has advocated for diversity and inclusion in the gaming space. I'm also head of marketing for Live CGI, which specializes in virtual spaces, CGI content, and just sort of brand continuity in this day and age. And, you know, for the last 11 years, I just really want to push the needle forward and see progression in this space.
Finishing out with Shail.
Hi everyone, my name is Shail. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Last Gameboard. The Last Gameboard is an interactive tabletop product. It's a 16 by 16 inch device that's square. It looks like a big iPad. It's thin, it's lightweight, it's portable. When you turn it on, it's like Netflix or Kindle. You have access to a library of games. You can play anything you want. Our proprietary, Our proprietary technology is the ability to use physical pieces or cards or dice on the digital surface of our game board. So if you have a chess set at home, a Catan piece, anything, you can play it on the game board. We do RPG games, traditional tabletop games, any open source games. Anyone can build a game for game board. And our mission is to kind of connect and bring people together and use technology to enable face-to-face connections.
Love it. So games are new-ish to libraries, but they are obviously gaining traction. Now, any librarian, whether an established gamer or new to the world, can Google, market share and lists of manufacturers and stuff like that. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Why is gaming important now? Why is this something that somebody needs to pay attention to right now? And what is your insight on what they should be paying attention to right now? Shail, you want to start?
Sure. I think gaming has been vital to society forever, right? I think that board games especially have been here since like the dawn of existence of mankind, right? They bring people together. Fundamentally, they bring down, social stigmas, barriers. They bring down a lot of things that we naturally see in ourselves or we see in people around us, and they get us to the truth of who we are. And that's just the ability to want to connect, to play, to learn from each other. And games just strip away all the fluff and all that stuff behind it and just have you focus and have you be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, that's connecting you and connecting other people. And especially in times of like social isolation and being far away, games to me and games to us are more important now than they've ever been. It's for mental health. It's for connectivity. It's making sure that you feel like your expression, your artistic abilities, no matter what they are heard and they're shown. And we do that through gaming.
I love it. Darcy, now you're a community manager every day. What's your take on that?
A big thumbs up, Shail. That was brilliant. I think you know, you talk about the Last Gameboard being, you know, part of its mission is this enabling that face-to-face communication, that spark of community. I think the way that games are changing right now, and why it might be important for libraries to sort of dip in at this time or dip in new ways, is that there's been this greater role of kind of the spectator gamer that we might get talking about a little bit later. You know, the role of Twitch streaming and people who might love a specific gamer who plays a multitude of games, and like that's kind of, they're not picking up the controller or the game piece themselves, but they are feeling a part of this gaming community. They're getting a lot out of the experience of games sort of in a spectator role. And when I think about libraries, I think about the way that they're these wonderful repositories of information and stories, and also a place for people to come together around them. And I think that the way that games are currently changing is to embrace that in new ways with sort of online streaming. And I'm really excited to see maybe the ways that libraries can interface more with this kind of streaming gamers coming together in community-oriented ways. And so I think, yeah, that's a bit of a ramble, but I think that's why games now is people are have more platforms for coming together as a community, and libraries can kind of access those people and those stories through those platforms.
What's your thought, Keisha? Because you've got kind of more of a video game tech, you know, attitude towards this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, really interesting sort of fact about me. When I was younger, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I used to just get bullied at school. I found going to school very depressing. And where I used to play hooky was the library. And, you know, out of all the fun places to go, that was where my sort of home was. That's where I felt safe. And the library serves a way bigger role than we could ever imagine for neighborhoods that are underserved or overlooked. And if it weren't for like my local library, I don't think I would have made it as far as I have. With that being said, you know, the information that is there and all the things that are offered there is incredibly important. Gaming in general is foundationally how we learn. It's how we simulate what we're going to be doing in our adult lives, or how we simulate how to solve a problem. It's critical to the principles of thinking that we use. So no matter what the format of the game is, whether it's analog or on a board game, or whether it's a digital format, it's definitely the place where we're going to problem solve and come up with new ideas in a way that's not stressful, in a way that teaches us about ourselves. And it's incredibly important to take a very, very close look at where the gaming industry is going and what it means to our society as a whole.
I totally agree with you 110%. I think the power of most pop culture mediums is it is an introduction to either see yourself reflected into something else, but it's also to try out new things. And especially with gaming, you have, you know, there's cause, effect, you know, a framework, you know, you manage your expectations, and it gives people there's a suspension of disbelief that lets them really try out not only new things about themselves, but to see new things about other people. That said, you know, it's exactly like you said, libraries, and especially with the economy going south, libraries are going to see a flood of new people, old people. Everyone's going to be looking for, you know, internet usage, you know, media, all of it. I mean, libraries are going to be inundated. So how, for a librarian, would you guys say how to identify who's a gamer?
Oh, I'll take this one. In my opinion, I don't know about Shail and Darcy, everyone's a gamer. Like every single person. The title gamer is something that for whatever reason is something that we don't want to self-identify as. Like, there's a portion of society that's like, I'm not a gamer. Yes, you are. Do you watch movies and call yourself a moviegoer? Or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Gaming is it's inherently part of our lives. So whether you're doing something super simple like playing tic-tac-toe or Candy Crush on your phone or checkers or whatever, you're still a gamer to some degree. You understand the fundamentals of gaming, why they're compelling, and how it helps you connect to other people. Like, everyone's a gamer to me.
I agree with that. I think everyone's a gamer. You know, when I talk about board games, and I never ask, do you play board games? I say, what board games have you played and what resonates with you the most? Because everyone in their you have played a board game. I have yet to meet a single individual who's like, I've never played a board game. Or, you know, and it's just that idea of like, gamer is a title. It is not, you know, you don't want to be in that category, which is fine, but you play games. Everyone does. It's like who we are as humans.
I agree.
Yeah, one of the things I found fascinating is because I do a lot of marketing work, is that subtle word choice can really make people bounce off of or be drawn to a given, like, maybe activity or program that a library might have, right? Is what I'm sort of imagining. And so, tabletop role-playing games are like Dungeons and Dragons, right? That can feel really inaccessible to some people. So one of the kind of moves we've made is trying out different kinds of language. And I think that might be really valuable as a given library tries to access its own audience and serve it. Storytelling games is really what we've moved to a lot of, because everybody loves stories. That's like a fundamental human trait, right? And, if gaming is how we're interacting with those stories, how we're creatively generating them together, whether that story is, the narrative of who will win in a tic-tac-toe game, right? There's still this sort of drama that gaming creates. And so I think I would just encourage people to maybe ask their audience about, even surveys, right, might help kind of understand the language that your constituents are sort of using about themselves. And that might help you, gear games toward them in ways that sort of reflect who they already think they are or who they want to be.
And I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, I think there's certain monikers: social gamer, core gamer, hobby gamer, tabletop gamer. So really kind of like honing in on how to refer to things.
Yeah.
Now, for the librarians at home, this was not the first time we did this panel. The first time we did this panel was at C2E2 this year. Man, have things changed.
Roughly 100 years ago, yes.
like
100, like it feels like forever ago that we all were in Chicago together. That's crazy.
And gaming in every moniker has changed dramatically in that time. So you guys, how has it changed for you? What are the changes that you've seen? What are pros, cons?
I'll
go for it.
I think people are embracing games more. And maybe because I see this a lot from the tech side and a lot from like venture capital side and a bunch of bros in Silicon Valley who like ignored D&D, who didn't know what RPG, they didn't understand role-playing games, they didn't understand this, and all of a sudden they're seeing a ton of people being vocal, posting about it, talking about it, and suddenly it's like, wait, this industry exists? It's like, hell yeah, this exists. This has been going on for decades. You're just late to the game. Like suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, there's this huge industry with this like large purchasing power and people are hungry for it. I'm like, you think people just don't want to sit around and watch Netflix? There are different ways to engage. There are different ways to be a part of a community. And it's our responsibility as creators, as entrepreneurs, as visionaries to like enable tech and enable games that bring this to life. And I think that society now is seeing the power of what hobby games, social games, video games, anything, but the power of gaming and how it connects people and how it's not some Orwellian dystopian future we need to fear in the future. It's about like creating things that work for us. So I think it's been positive. Maybe that's a positive light to COVID and everything that's going on. I said the C word. I said I wouldn't, and I said it.
Oh, say it. We're all saying it. We're all thinking it. We're all breathing it. It's part of the narrative right now. Did you have any thoughts on that, Darcy?
Yeah. So one of the surprises, if you had told Darcy of 2019, there's a pandemic, what happens to gaming? I would have said, cool, all of these explorations of how do we game better together online are going to flourish. People are going to use more of these services. People are going to become more aware of them. I could have guessed that. What I might not have guessed is how important being in a digital game space with my friends together has sort of become as a way to feel like we're hanging out, right? Animal Crossing, right, is this Nintendo Switch game that's absolutely hugely popular and extremely peaceful and out in nature. And so for many reasons, I could see why it's appealing right now. But I think one of the reasons that I've seen is that it is a place to go. Gaming as a place to go hadn't been as apparent to me as how important it is until now. And so you're seeing Tinder dates go meet up on each other's Animal Crossing islands because, where do you go? We're tired of Zoom. Zoom is where work lives. Animal Crossing, my gaming space, is a more gentle, intimate place for us to hang out and feel that recharge those batteries about being around other people you'd like to be around. So I've been fascinated by seeing games as places people go to for sort of refuge.
That's cool as shit. I didn't know any of it.
It's really awesome. Geeky, but there's enough of us, so it's happening.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Keisha, did you have any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I've never gotten more work than in the last 4 months. It's been intense. But one thing that I have to say about it that I'm concerned about is that as it pertains to working in the industry specifically, there are always social disparities in gaming. Mm-hmm. And I just sort of was fortunate enough and lucky enough to be working in this industry during this time. What is disturbing to me is that we're not at the place in our society where there is the diversity that needs to be in this space right now, because it is flourishing and it's more important than ever. And everyone's now looking at it in a whole different lens because, as Darcy mentioned, this is where we hang out now, how we connect. This is what we're doing. And we're tired of Zoom meetings and we're looking for more and more ways to engage that feel real while being safe and healthy. And the people who are creating these spaces, the people who are sort of in charge of what it looks like, there needs to be so many more voices involved in that process.
Agreed.
No, and that brings me to, and just so you guys know too, we have some questions starting to come in, which is cool, but we're going to hold them for just a minute. That brings us to really the large elephant in the room that's been here for hundreds of years. We are now seeing, because of COVID, people finally dealing with social issues and disparities that haven't been dealt with, and that frankly are so beyond overdue. For the tabletop gamer, there have been a number of issues involving the Origins Convention that I'm not going to pass judgment on it. That's a whole other conversation. We could be talking for 3 hours. But these are incredible things that finally people are having conversations. GAMA is the retailer organization for basically hobby gaming stores, and we're seeing people finally saying, whether it is diversity, whether it's oppression, whether it is, social economic issues, that we have to start dealing with this, which is good. It's overdue, but it's good that we are finally there. And I think that really brings to, the point that has come up among all of you, that gaming and community go hand in hand. With that said, in COVID, we are now advancing, what that community means. How do we define that community? And now we are at the point where, it's time. What does your community do to raise those voices that need to be heard, and to deal with online trolls, to deal with maybe people who see this as something that is, it's politics. I don't want to talk about politics in my gaming. So that said, what is the vision for you guys of an ideal community what are the responsibilities of being a member of those communities?
That's a dense question.
I know. Keisha, you want to go?
Oh, I thought Shail was going to go.
Okay, fine. All right, I'm going to. Thank you. I'll say something that's super personal to me. Last year, when conventions and everything was going on, GameBoard was much newer than it was now, and we were setting up all these meetings with tabletop publishers and board gamers. And the person who was helping us coordinate the meeting said, "Shail, I'm not going to have you sit in on a list of meetings. I just kind of want to protect you." And I was like, "What?" And I realized he was talking about the fact that I was a brown girl and it just wouldn't be received well. They said that Tim, my co-founder, who's, white male, the meetings would go better. And I kind of was okay with it. I said, sure. I said, whatever's best for the company. And then all this stuff started kind of happening, and, it gave me a chance to reflect on me and the decisions I make and who I am and the faults that I have and the perception that I gave out by saying, cool, and just taking a back seat. And I regret that a lot. And I think that what this has taught us in social disparity, what has taught me personally, is that I am my own advocate. I am my own voice. And through me, can I enable my community? Can I enable my peers? Can I enable change? And if I do not change my behavior, how can I expect that from a greater society? And that includes the choices that I make every day. So I will never do that again. And I'll own who I am, take it or leave it. And I think that's something personally I've learned from this experience. And I feel like that's the only way to really help around you, to call out bullshit, to call out so much inequality that there is. And finally, and you know what, we can get mad at people coming into the game late, just saying a simple phrase like Black Lives Matter. Like, why did it take you so long to say that? It's fine if it came in late, as long as it came and you acknowledge it and you receive it and you truly understand what that means, So that's my personal experience.
Love it. Love it. Oh, yes. Darcy, you want to
go? First of all, that breaks my heart. And I know there's so many stories like that. But so I think that I have 2 points I want to make sort of regarding communities. And one of them is, Shail, you're talking about the work that you need to do to improve things. And man, I adore you, but you are not where the work needs to happen, right? I just attended a really great seminar by Writing the Other. Kay Tempest Bradford and Nisi Shail put on this seminar on how to be a better ally. And it's, basically for, primarily like people like me, right? Well-meaning people with probably various positions of power in whatever creative field you're in, wanting to be less bad, right? To, be more proactively good about, creating better opportunities and addressing this kind of social inequality that we're having. And one of their sort of action items was like, come get your people. And it's about like, hey, white people, like, go over, if there are other people who look like me and are, being rude at a convention or something to, POC, and I see it happen, right? Like, it's on me to stand up to. And I think that when we talk about, so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be happening on people like my end, right? And I work at a company that's basically all white, right? So tons of work we're trying to do, but need to do more, right? When we talk about kind of other kinds of communities, I've been thinking lately about how we want to make inclusive communities. And I think we always have to ask ourselves, like, inclusive for who, right? And so I think that there's this, often when I see communities start up around gaming, there's this sense of like, we just want everyone to get along. We want everyone to just get along with each other. And so there's this real resistance to like, making anyone mad if you call them out wrong, right? There's this real like resistance of taking stronger actions to curate that community and make it a better place. And so I think that when I think about like kind of my vision for communities, I think they need to have tools for gracefully asking certain people to leave and go work on their stuff before they come back. Because if we keep kind of toxic elements in our communities, we're not being inclusive. We're going to be pushing out by proxy all the people who are getting pushed out because of that bad behavior. So I think there's like a whole many hours of conversation we could have on this, but rethinking what it means to be an inclusive community with respect to gaming, I think is really important right now.
Great.
Keisha, you want to chime in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, I'm not necessarily sure what the metric of success for libraries are, right? But in our society, we live in a capitalistic society. So for the entirety of the time I have existed, it's all really about the bottom line. It's all really about like what your metric of success is. And it wasn't until just this moment where we were forced to look at our humanity and be introspective for ourselves and introspective of the companies or the organizations that we're leading and what that culture is beyond the bottom line, beyond profits, beyond those other metrics of success, that change was ever going to happen. Like, who cares if everyone's getting paid? Who cares if like at least you can pay your bills, at least, this is a successful institution, right? You can put out a statement and not really do the work as it pertains to leaning into what community you say that you want to have is. So now that we're here, that pivot is so much more important because people are really looking at that, and you have to stand by the community that you're trying to build, or it will affect your success or those other success metrics where it wasn't like that before. So, before, Shail, you had just mentioned you had been in meetings and, they said not to say anything. It was all a bottom line thing, right? They want to make sure that they can get the investment. And before this moment happened, you can be in an all white company and like, who cares? Mm-hmm. Everyone's happy, right? Everyone gets along. But now, like, libraries as a pillar of any community have to really understand what that community is and what they're trying to push forward in society for our future. And gaming is such an important part of that. It's such a fundamental part of our humanity and our society. And especially as a career choice, I mean, before it was looked at as such a goofy career choice for so long. I think for people that what you said?
I said it's a fun career.
Yeah, it's
the Indian head nod, but yeah.
It wasn't taken seriously. At least in my space in digital gaming, it's $150 billion industry that does not include women or people of color. Like, it's a career that people make loads of money off of, and we haven't been socialized to include everybody. And libraries as a pillar of the community can change that narrative or help change that narrative. So like young girls like me, that like the only place they have to go is that free library. There is that resource to let me know that this space can include me too.
Well, and going along the lines of going back to Darcy about, what, tools, research, etc. I have my personal view as the senior, the classic version of the gamer. I think that all gaming is about being the hero in some regards. And to me, being part of gaming is standing the hell up. If I had to say it in 2 words, it is advocate, connect, empower. Advocate for people who are as the beast of the Southern Wild said, if someone is smaller and sweeter than I am, that's your job to help them up. And connect people to opportunity, connect people to each other, connect people to information, connect people in any way every day, and then empower. This is a marathon, not a sprint. This is, as Darcy put it very correctly, brown people, black people, Asians, whatever. It's not their job. It's their job to exist. So it is on the rest of us. And if, as to, well, where do I get started? All of these types of things. Start wherever you can. Start today. It's not hard. And it's like anything else. Once you get started and you realize, this is a selfish act. This is about making the world a more colorful place, a more beautiful place, a more interesting place. And you are better off for doing the work. So let's bring in a question that's perfectly timed for this. What would you say to girls and women who are afraid of getting into gaming because of the stories that male gamers aren't particularly inclusive or kind to us? Go for it.
Go.
I have to say to those women, like, we all have to, it's hard to be brave. I don't necessarily think that our society is going to change overnight to be more welcoming and warm and soft and comfortable. And as a person that has had to exist in discomfort for virtually the entirety of my existence, it's time to just do it afraid. Just do it with fear. Just do it anyway, because it's this space is for you too. And that's hard. That's a hard piece of advice. It's so hard, but there are things that, can help that. There are other women who've done it, or other people that might identify with your particular set of circumstances, whether it's women, whether it's non-binary, whether it's a racial thing, whatever it is. There have been people that have existed in those spaces that have been doing the work and would still be welcoming. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if things are going to change overnight. I'm liking that women have been brave enough to come forward, especially in the last week. It's been, devastating to hear some of the stories, but also, it feels like real change might actually happen now that, again, accountability means more than just feeling guilty. It means that you could lose your job. It means that you can lose your money. It means that your livelihood is at stake if you aren't a person that is inclusive of all types of people. And that means something. So now is the best time. Now is the better time than ever to move forward, even though the horror stories are there. And I don't know if they're going to go away anytime soon, but the people who've been doing the work exist. And I know that, especially people like me and Darcy and Shail, we're here to help that community, press forward.
Yeah, and that said, I think that's the reason I came up with this panel, is that people learn from example. All three of you have forged very specific voices in what is a male-dominated industry. You are now doing this not only during COVID, but with the recent protests. There are huge, spotlights on socioeconomic disparities that we are now dealing with. And you guys are still doing this. Nothing has changed for you. You haven't, if anything, you haven't stepped backwards. You've stepped forwards. So if you guys can do it, I can do it, and everyone watching can do it. So it's scary, but please, I am honored to have met all of these ladies in person. They are friends. They are our, clients. They are in my community. And they have been wonderful examples, for me. So they will, find those examples, be the example, and other people will get on board. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
No, I mean, I think Keisha said it perfectly, and so did you. Right? Go forward with fear. So what? You're scared. I'm terrified every day. It's okay.
Yeah. Every day. And you know what? It's all going to be fine. Yeah. So I have another question for you guys. Has anyone started a Dungeons and Dragons club, and what roadblocks have you encountered?
I didn't start one, but I joined one.
I was part of one when I was a kid. Yeah. I was the only girl at age 9. And I showed up with my little dice bag, and everybody was like, "Why is she here?" And I'm like, "I have my character sheet. I am ready to go."
I love that. I did it when I was younger too, but I was much younger. I think I was 11 or 12, and I joined one. And it was just a bunch of boys, and it was me. And I think I lasted 4 or 5 sessions before, which is a lot, before I was I thought it wasn't for me. And I regret that. Now I can play it again and it's fine. But it's when you're young and it's so new and you love it and you still feel like it's not for you, it was hard.
Legit. Darcy, did you ever?
I never started one. I've been a part of some. I think that my roommate John Harness is also a game designer. He's Cartwheel without the H, sort of on Twitter and elsewhere. He ran a long-running D&D group at a comic book shop, and I think that one of the things he found was one of the roadblocks, right, is that, you know, especially if you have your first group and it's a bunch of boys, how do you communicate that, like, we are open beyond whatever people we have here? And I know John did, you know, would sort of talk to some of the people who came over to watch. And I think that can be kind of a useful way for you to sort of, you know, you can go talk to those people and sort of recruit a little bit or at least let them know that they're welcome there. I think there's other ways that you can kind of make people feel welcome. And that might be picking diverse character art and, like, you know, having, like, you know, books with covers on them that have, like, women in POC, right? Like, that starts to communicate, like, who is a part of this, not only to people who might come join your club, but also to the, you know, the people who you do have in that group starting out. They're going to go out into the world. And so I think you can do a lot of good work making the you know, the kids who come to your club at the start, you know, put a lot of, like, women and people, POC and queer folks in your stories, and it will normalize them, and those people will go out. And I'm trying to think of other roadblocks, but that sort of inclusivity and how to broadcast it to people is a common one, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's also one, I think it's for teachers as well, that there's a sort of administrators want to see, like.
Oh, no.
Oh, we just lost your audio, Liz.
Oh, no, she's saying so many things, too.
We can't hear
She's
you.
saying so many things. Liz, stop talking. We can't hear you.
Oh, no. Okay, there you go.
There you are.
Hear you.
Hello.
Hey, who can? Did we lose everything?
Just for, like, just a minute.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to go over to one more question. How do we take gaming to the online format in libraries? What board games work well in the virtual format? So much seems to exist in person, but not online. Shail, I think this is your ball game.
Gameboard. You know, sorry for the plug, but I had to. Gameboard is about finding what people like to play, having access to a library of games, using physical pieces if you don't want to. It's a portable device. You can attach it to a table if you want. It gives people the ability to come in, sit around, and play together, right? Like a simple act like taking a screen that's vertical and putting it horizontal and having people sit around it automatically changes what it means, right? It's meant to gather. It's meant to interact. It's meant to play. And you can play with people that are not even in that space at the time if there's a game board somewhere else. So you can play Battleship from two different places, or have a D&D, like have a whole D&D session where there's a dungeon master somewhere and you're controlling a game that's happening in different libraries. That is what the essence of Gameboard is. It's not just virtual. It is about the connection between the physical and the virtual. It is about gathering people together in new and creative ways that aren't only escapism into a completely virtual world. And that's what we're doing with Gameboard. And I know there's tons of other resources and online things that you can play. But for me, that's why I created Gameboard, right? It's that mission to merge the analog and digital, because I believe hybrid games is what the future should be. And that is how we retain who we are as humans, with that tactile analog feel, while using technology and creating technology that enhances that connection with who we are. So that's what Gameboard 1 is.
Gameboard 1 is available for pre-orders at www.thelastgameboard.com.
Thanks, Liz.
Keisha, what would you think about all that?
Oh, God. I guess to wrap up this in a nutshell, like, as a person that's rarely ever seen myself represented in this space, I knew if I was going to be in this space that I was just going to have to make some new stuff. So, or I was going to, like, have to go in a backdoor way, you know, like, I wasn't going to be able to go to the front door and be like, hey, I'm here, accept me, aren't I familiar? Like, no, that wasn't going to happen. So, you know, you had mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, the last the last question, and as a Southside Black Chicago woman, I wanted to know. I've played Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been a part of clubs with mostly dudes. And I wanted to know like why more Black women weren't into tabletop RPGs. And what I found is that Black women, a lot of them, don't want to play subhuman characters. So they don't want to be like an orc or an elf. And then when you see the box, the person that is the hero is like probably some white dude that's depicted. And that's just common. It's still common. So I created a game called Project Violation, where you can be yourself, but you still have that whole theater of the mind. You still have that whole creative thinking process where you're talking to, you know, other people, you're playing with other people, but you can be more engaged because you are representing who you really want to be instead of like, you know, having an orc or an elf or anything like that. So, you know, I guess to put that in a nutshell, creating new ways of getting people to explore what gaming is. So making games, like providing a space where they can gamify an experience as a form of expression for themselves. I think that would be like a really great sort of asset that a library can contain. Like, yeah, you know, Dungeons and Dragons has always been there, but there are inequalities and biases baked into that game already. Like that game wasn't made to include people like me. So, you know, like
how does someone get their hands on it? How does someone get their hands on your game?
Sugargamers.com, and then you can just go to Project Violation, and we're going to kickstart it later, but you know, check it out.
Also follow her on Instagram. She's got some of the preliminary stuff. It's incredible. Like, and if you are a sci-fi person of cyberpunk, anything like that, it is as legit a world as you can get. Darcy, we're starting to wrap stuff up. Darcy, what do you think about, you know, board games, virtual places for people to begin?
Yeah, I would say we've said a lot of good stuff. I would point out that like it would be worth maybe exploring some other virtual tabletops that do not do anywhere near, that don't even touch the sort of analog plus digital that the Last Gameboard does. But for digital only, things that you might want to check out are things like Tabletop Simulator and Roll20 would be maybe two starting points, kind of board games and then role-playing games, respectively. And so you might be able to set up events where people run some of those games for others online. And then the other thing is, you know, whatever you're already good at or you have staff kind of excited about or you know, have expertise in, please like reach out to me if you need a start for learning how to stream your content. So if one of your staff members loves video games, and maybe you're playing it in a cool historical context, like start a YouTube channel and like start streaming to Twitch and putting up the videos on YouTube of your cool staff member playing a game and talking about it and talking about maybe other contexts that, you know, your cool library goers can go check out. So I would say that like the possibilities are really wide, especially when you start going into kind of streaming spaces. And it is not as scary as it sounds, and I would be happy to help.
Yeah, and I love, first of all, thank you. That is a lovely gesture for you to offer that. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And I agree, Roll20, man. Roll20 is a fantastic place, you know, for to start. You know, we have 2 minutes left. There are, you know, hundreds of librarians watching this right now who are doing it. What would you tell them right now in your elevator pitch? What's the last thing you want to leave them with?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I have the same story as Keisha. Like, libraries are where I went for refuge, and it was just, they're powerful, you know, they're powerful institutions in my memory. And just thank you for your work, and thank you for listening to us.
If you haven't played games as an individual and you're working in libraries, I encourage you to play games. If you're a parent, play games with your kids, figure out like what games they're playing and really engage with how they're seeing that world and how they're playing games. It's more important now than ever to really understand what kids are doing in that space.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to give a plug for itch.io. itch.io. It is a platform that I talked a lot about at our last panel and didn't get into this time, but it is an online place where people are making video games, tabletop games, and all kinds of weird things in between. And it's got a lot of really interesting community-based features, but I think what's really important about it is that is where I am seeing, really diverse creators making what they want in the world. And so if you really want to bring out some really cool representation, stuff to show your audience and to know what really cool diverse creators are making, itch.io is a great place to check it out. Specifically, I would recommend Dissonant Whispers, which is a magazine that just came out of a bunch of cool tabletop content written by a bunch of really awesome POC, and proceeds go to good charities and things like that. So Dissonant Whispers, itch.io. And I think people like me are doing a lot of listening right now in gaming. And I think that's good. And we can do more work in active listening. And I'm excited to see what comes out of you wonderful librarians. Thank you.
Me too.
You guys need to find me. I am at www.sphinxpr.com. I can connect you to pretty much anyone in the world. So stump me with whatever you guys need. Librarians, we would be nothing without you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Stay safe. Be brave.